Hey guys, it's Jennifer Wilson, your guide at Simple Scrapper. Welcome back to the Great Stash Bash. This is our final day, and I'm so excited for this video. It's an updated oldie but a goodie, and I just can't wait to share it with you because it's so fun. It features cats, and it's going to be something that I hope you can take away into your future endeavors as you use up, declutter, and organize your stash of scrapbook supplies. Let's get to it. In this video, you'll learn how to declutter easily, organize anything, and stay motivated along the way. We begin with digital decluttering because it's one of the easiest ways to see results quickly. Also, in today's world, scrapbooking most often begins with a digital image. If your photos are in order, getting started can become effortless, even if you have too many supplies and not enough space. To begin, we must first define clutter. Clutter is your stuff in an excessive or disorderly state. When your stuff gets in the way of getting things done, it's clutter. Clutter can be eliminated or ordered, but dealing with it is an essential prerequisite for getting and staying organized. Most of the time, when we think about clutter, we imagine our countertops or other flat surfaces. We think about the stuff you can touch. But in reality, digital clutter is just as real as physical clutter. It makes it harder to find what you need and gets in the way of getting things done. Digital clutter is not always easy to spot because it can be hidden away in virtual junk drawers. I often hear that hard drive space is cheap, so we need not worry ourselves with digital clutter, but I disagree. If you can't find what you need to scrapbook, or you've had to buy yet another external hard drive to store everything, it's time to take a second look. Digital clutter is probably getting in the way of memory keeping. So now let's go a little deeper and talk about how to declutter digital files. We're talking about all computer files here, including digital photos and digital scrapbook supplies, as there is little difference in their handling. You can begin by setting a time limit. I like to use a timer in a lot of decluttering, but I find it especially helpful on the computer. And this is doubly true if your computer is connected to the internet. A timer will help you work quickly and reduce the resistance to decision making. Set the timer for 10 to 15 minute increments so that you can maintain a good pace. You can take short breaks in between sessions, but try to do a series for the most benefit. You can get an incredible amount done in just 1 hour of digital decluttering. Would you leave a trash can on your kitchen counter? So why do you leave it on your computer's desktop or in its folder structure? The first thing to look for are files that can be deleted, your digital trash. You're going to find it everywhere, so deleting files will become a strong undercurrent of the decluttering process. The more you do it, the more it will become second nature to eliminate files you don't really need. As you scour the computer for items to delete, pay attention to all the locations you find scrapbooking files. Ask yourself if it makes any sense and consider how files end up in each place. Because digital clutter is often out of sight, the best practices we commonly apply to our physical items can be forgotten. Ideally, all of your photos would be in one spot and your digital supplies close by in another. Reality is often a lot more scattered, but that's why you're here. Before you can get into any form of organization like tagging, you must group like with like. To understand what you have, eliminate what you don't need, and then organize what's left, you need to have everything together. Grouping like with like will also help you identify any duplication. It's so easy to make a copy of files that we often do it without thinking. This can lead to confusion about which version is the official copy, particularly if any editing has been done. Also, when photo or supply libraries are split, it's even harder to know what you have. Now, there's a bridge step between decluttering and organization. We can call it stacking. On your computer, this often involves using folders. You want to use the smallest number of folders that get the job done. It can be tempting to nest folders as a form of organization, but most of the time this actually makes it harder to find what you need. As you group like with like, be aware of overstacking. Ideally, you want to stack folders next to each other. Think of them like books on a shelf. Now, you wouldn't put one book inside of another, would you? Finally, I have an important reminder that you'll carry throughout the digital decluttering and organization process. On the computer, files and folders are usually ordered in alphabetical order. But for the file or folder name to be useful and to see what you have together, it's critical to be consistent with the name and storing of files and folders. Keep this consistency in mind from the beginning to reduce headaches in both organization and in scrapbooking. Now we're going to tackle decluttering photo prints and traditional scrapbook supplies. So remember, clutter is stuff that's getting in the way of your productivity. It weighs on your mind and takes up space in your life. Now returning to the physical, tangible stuff of your scrapbooking. It turns out, though, that physical decluttering is actually quite similar to digital. You begin with an assessment of what you have and whether you need to have it at all. Then you can ask where, generally, it should live. The answer can be as simple as here or not here. Remember, we're not organizing yet, we're just decluttering. I like to use these 3 simple questions for each physical decluttering activity. Does this belong here? Do I need to keep this? What is the best home for this? I ask these questions again and again as I move through each item. So the purpose of decluttering is to create more space in your life for creating, for enjoying your hobby without stress. I know how hard it can be to get rid of things, regardless of their final destination, and to work through a lot of stuff. But the more you get into it, the easier it becomes. As you let go of the burdens of your stuff, the more you can invite in motivation and inspiration. It can be overwhelming to think about the entire space you need to declutter, or worse, that you have many spaces to declutter. That's why I like to think about decluttering in zones. I look at a space and I roughly subdivide it by what lives there or how I use that portion of the space. At the same time, I try to stay flexible. You may find that one zone is too large and still feels overwhelming, so you break it down further. Or on the flip side, you may find that one small area is effectively connected to another. Using flexible zones along with good, strong mental blinders on helps me focus on what's just in front of me and not the enormity of decluttering as a whole. I often think of decluttering as mental organization as it involves as much or more thought as it does action. Once you've decided to keep something, you can mentally categorize it into a broad category. For many scrapbookers, you'll want to keep broad categories like photo prints, tools, paper, and embellishments together. Remember the idea of grouping like with like from before. Assigning this mental tag of a category helps you identify if your physical items are already cohabitating or still need to move in together. So how do you get started? I always begin with a box or bin in hand. Most often, I'll even have multiple boxes that are labeled for trash, recycling, to sell, and to donate. However, my most important decluttering tool is actually a temporary holding bin for collecting items to be sorted. If you have a lot of clutter, it can be overwhelming to sort it in place. For tough jobs, I like to quickly place items from one zone into a bin so that I can go through them in another room. Or if you need to sort in place, sometimes I'll use that bin for anything that doesn't belong right here. Then I'll walk around transferring items to where they belong, to another zone in the space, to another room in the house, or to one of my get rid of bins. There's no best way, and often it depends on how your brain works. The key is to grab a container and go now. With a box or bin in hand, grab that timer. There's nothing like a very clear deadline to spur you to action. Use your attention span as a guide for how long to set the timer. I can usually focus on physical decluttering for 20 to 30 minutes, but feel free to choose shorter or longer increments. The best thing about a timer is that you usually want to keep going and do even more. As you declutter a zone, keep an eye out for storage solutions that are actually clutter. It's possible to be faux organized with too many or inefficient containers. As you process items, evaluate current storage solutions and ask yourself whether simpler would be better. We'll talk about this again later since it's a common problem. Now, decluttering is a process, so don't expect a quick fix. That said, you don't need to evaluate every single scrapbooking item to make progress. Perhaps you want to go just one layer deep on everything, or maybe you'd rather go deeper on just one or two zones. Every 30-minute session adds up to a whole lot of space in your life and in your scrapbooking. As you go through a short, intensive period of decluttering, celebrate your wins and look forward to the wins still ahead of you. Now, it might feel frustrating. You want your stuff dealt with once and for all, but I have a secret. The more you embrace and employ these basic techniques, the more they will become habits for you. Today, I get rid of items easily, but it wasn't always that way. As you invest energy in organizing simply, the simpler it becomes. Tammy writes that she has too many supplies and doesn't want to let go. Plus, she keeps accumulating supplies with impulse purchases. My first recommendation is to implement a temporary spending freeze. Now, I love shopping just as much as the next scrapbooker, but a short-term halt to acquisition can be eye-opening and give you breathing room to declutter. Then, the next step is to identify which categories of supplies have the most excess. One trick is to look for the items you keep skipping over again and again. Even if you like them on your own, for some reason they don't work for your scrapbooking. I find this just as true for photos as I do for supplies. Letting go gets a little easier when you can mentally acknowledge that the item just isn't getting your love any longer. Terry Lynn has a dedicated scrapbooking space and writes that she can't scrapbook if her space is a mess, that it always seems to be a mess, even if she hasn't scrapbooked recently. If clutter seems to accumulate immediately, you probably have a combination of too much stuff for the space and a certain degree of inefficient organization. Look first towards zones where you can pare back, and then to creating new storage solutions for what's left. I do recommend decluttering first, as storage solutions should be tailored to what you're keeping, not your clutter. Now we have some of my favorite techniques for organizing absolutely anything. First, I want to take a moment to discuss the difference between decluttering and organization. Decluttering eliminates the excess, showing you clarity about what you have. Organization is the process of storing items in ways that are easy to find and use. This distinction is important because decluttering is an important prerequisite for organization. That's why we spent so much time on it. False starts and lots of frustration can happen when you begin to organize without decluttering first. With your stuff in the way, you can get distracted by sorting boxes or stuck on making decisions. You can make it easier on yourself by separating decisions about keeping items from determining what goes where and in what container. Think of it like a cake, where decluttering is the cake and organizing is the icing. You can't frost it until you bake it. So how do you organize? Organization is the process of grouping similar items together and storing them so they can be easily identified and accessed. It gives a formal home for each item so that it can be returned there. To go further, simple organization focuses first on that point in the future when you need an item, and builds solutions to meet the needs of actually using items, not just what looks pretty or gets everything put away. Your best organization system is the most simple one for your needs, not someone else's. The best system matches how you scrapbook with any personality quirks that impact your process and habits. The best system offers room to grow and helps you scrapbook with ease. Let's say this another way. There's no wrong way to organize. The way that works best for you will uniquely combine universal best practices with your own needs and preferences. The easiest way to begin organizing is to think about how you scrapbook, and in particular how you like to select supplies for your scrapbooking. How you think and operate when it comes to selection will impact whether you keep kits together or break them apart, and whether you sort embellishments by color or type. Consider both what frustrates you and what excites you when selecting product. Seek first to eliminate those frustrations and worry less about organizing the supplies you enjoy most. One of the most important organization decisions you'll face is when to use open and closed storage. Open storage has the benefit of being in view and easier to identify items, but can be visually distracting. Closed storage keeps your space looking neater, but you may forget what you have. Most scrapbookers use a combination of open and closed storage to best meet their space and process needs. Use open storage for items you want to reach for easily and often. Use closed storage for items you use less often or don't mind thumbing through. If there's only one thing you can take away from this video, it's that fancy containers are not necessary to get organized. You can often repurpose packaging from products and utilize common household items to store your supplies. Look for a creative solution to match a storage need before you head to the store. With organization, it's not as important to make rapid decisions. In fact, it's far more important to be thoughtful as you focus on creating systems that work for you. Don't dwell or make it more complicated than it needs to be, but do look for optimal stash solutions one at a time. Cindy writes that she has trouble keeping her works in progress available to work on in small increments of time, while also making sure everything is not left out. I have two approaches for this challenge that, when used together, should help. First, do try to make sure that you minimize the number of projects in progress. 1 or 2 is best. Next, use trays, bins, or envelopes, or a combination of those, to house an in-progress project. For example, a large cookie sheet can hold a partially completed layout and be set on a shelf or table out of the way. Along with that, you can have a small bin or storage envelope to contain the supplies you've pulled for the project. Debbie has a lot of punches and can't figure out how to organize them besides boxing them up. The best solution here will depend on how often the punches get used. If they are a go-to, then you might look into a very narrow wall storage to have them on display. Lead shelves are commonly available. If these punches are just used some of the time, boxes might actually be a good option. But you can create a large label for the box with a visual key for what punches are inside each. That makes it easy to know where to find the one you need. Patricia has one of the most common problems: too much paper. She writes that she has so much of it and she never feels that it's organized enough to use effectively. Scrapbook paper can be a big challenge, especially since that 12 by 12 size is a little unwieldy. Unless you are scrapbooking from kits, the reality is that you're going to have to thumb through paper to make selections. For that reason, I don't believe paper needs to be perfectly organized to be used effectively. Instead, I suggest using a better decision-making strategy over a better organization strategy. What I like to do is choose one pattern paper that is multicolored and fits the mood of your layout. Then, use that first selection as a reference to vet other papers. Look for more monochromatic choices that play on the individual colors within your multicolored pattern. Jennifer's biggest challenge is lack of a system. She can't decide between organizing by color or theme, so she doesn't move forward. This is the exact problem that your unique scrapbooking workflow can solve. Pay attention to how you select products for your layout. Do you say, I need a pink button? Or do you say, I need to find supplies to go with this birthday layout? Or maybe do you do neither of these things and you simply think, I need a button? Identify your dominant approach, whether that's by color, by theme, or simply by type, and use that to inform your own unique system. Finally, I have some of my best suggestions for getting excited about organizing and turning that momentum into real motivation and action. First, let's talk about feeling unmotivated. Getting organized can be overwhelming, especially when there's too much to do. This is just a fact. However, you can trick your brain into feeling excited instead of overwhelmed. The thing is, there's a great way to do this and a way that really doesn't work at all. It's common to believe that inspiration is the answer, so you read articles and browse images of beautiful workspaces. In reality, this approach rarely leaves you feeling more motivated. In fact, it can result in a negative spiral of comparison and procrastination. Instead, what I recommend is turning inward and focusing on the feelings you most desire. Take a deep breath and imagine what you would feel like if you were more organized than you are now, even just a little bit. Would you feel optimistic? Then expand that to feeling totally organized. Would you feel lighter and more free? Looking towards positive feelings of accomplishment is the first step to staying motivated. Kelly writes that she has trouble putting things away after a creative session so that she can start again with a clean space. Cultivating a habit of cleaning up does take time and willpower, and like most habits, the more you do it, the easier it will become. It is in this moment that I most often use the exercise I just described. I pause and think about how I want to feel the next time I enter my workspace or the next time I want to scrapbook. I focus on how great it feels to start fresh every time, and that is what propels me to take those 5 to 10 minutes to clean up. So how do you actually extend that motivation beyond 10 minutes, beyond the ding of your email inbox, beyond folding that load of laundry? There are 2 keys to staying motivated that work together to hold you up and keep you going. The first is self-confidence. You know what to do. Many of the concepts in this video likely were not new. This was intentional. Maybe you've never applied these ideas to scrapbooking, but when it comes down to it, you know what to do. You really do. You know that there's no secret approach you've never heard of and that getting organized requires putting one foot in front of the other. These lessons were designed to remind you that you have the skills, the know-how to more effectively manage your stash. You can stay motivated by believing in yourself. Now here's a bit of a refresher. You know when you're shopping a little too much. You know that when you balance buying with making, your stash doesn't increase at an overwhelming rate. You know that you can't do everything at once. You know the best way to tackle anything big is to break it down into pieces, steps, or zones. Charlene writes that her biggest organizing challenge is time. She can't get motivated to organize because there are so many real-life distractions. Interruptions of all kinds are a reality and difficult to avoid. But when you have an organizing project to begin, or any project for that matter, use your skill of breaking it down. Make a list, even just a short list of the next 3 actions you need to take. With bite-sized steps outlined, when you return from an interruption, you know exactly what to do next. You also know that limits, especially on your time, force you out of procrastination and into action. You know challenges work well for you and that you just need to accept the invitation to begin. Just like you can't do everything, you know that you can't possibly keep everything. You know you probably should get rid of X, Y, or Z. This knowledge is power, as they say. If something isn't filling you up and is getting in the way of productivity, it's clutter. You know the question to ask. Start asking it more. And finally, you know why you scrapbook. You know why it matters that you have all this stuff in the first place. Take care of your stuff so that you can fulfill what's in your heart, so that you can focus on what matters most. You got this. You really do. Tammy writes that she has so many things that she has trouble deciding where to start. The most natural starting point is linked with your why. What part of scrapbooking fills you up the most? Is it the photos? Is it the embellishments? Or is it the finished albums? Recognizing your favorite part of the journey and start organizing there. For many scrapbookers, self-confidence is only a starting point. It's natural and normal to need encouragement and accountability from a support system. Your support system can include family members, close friends, the online scrapbooking community, or all of the above. In our membership community at Simple Scrapper, you'll receive encouragement in the form of challenges to tackle your scrapbook stash, to use up, declutter, and organize your traditional or digital scrapbook supplies. This ongoing support will help you take control of the chaos and invite order into your physical or digital workspace. And when you're more organized, you'll be able to find exactly what you need when you need it most. You are not alone. The group environment at Simple Scrapper means that you have hundreds of like-minded women cheering you on. You'll feel empowered, lifted up, and held accountable each and every day. The membership is also an opportunity to receive personalized coaching and guidance directly from me. I'm deeply active in our community, answering questions and moving you towards a hobby full of greater joy and ease. If you're craving a fun and friendly support system for your scrapbooking, follow the link below this video to learn more about membership at Simple Scrapper. Before you go, make sure to enter our giveaway for a seat in Refresh. Refresh is our 7-day online scrapbooking retreat designed to help you start fresh in memory keeping each and every season. The next session is coming up in April. To win a seat, simply leave a comment on this video sharing your progress in using up, decluttering, or organizing your stash of scrapbook supplies. You may optionally include a link to a blog post, Instagram post, or YouTube video where you're sharing this progress with others. You must be registered for the Great Stash Bash to be eligible. Please check the description box for the registration link and the deadline to enter the giveaway.